simulcast. What's up? Aristotle Full Throttle here, live on Instagram Live and on YouTube Live. Soon to be on Twitch, but I looked into it, guys. It's a complicated matter. I'm going to work on that. There's so many things. Everybody wants you to pay them to do the thing. And right now, there's not much money going around on account of the economy. But you guys can, hey, Flicker Tree Productions, welcome. Guess what we're talking about today? We're talking about the SNYDERVERSE, the DCEU, the movies that were adapted from the DC comics to the big screen. And they were supposed to hopefully make a whole realistic universe featuring Superman and Batman and Wonder Man and Catman and Catman-Do and Catman-Don't and all of the people. There's garbage trucks, ladies and gentlemen, coming to take me away. So watch out. If I get pulled out of here, don't call 911. That's the emergency line. Call 311. That's like the less of an emergency line. Just drink your coffee, have a good time, and let's start with actually the Christopher Nolan Batman movies. Now you've got the Batman movies. Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. These movies were good. People might debate whether or not The Dark Knight Rises was good, but that movie was not as good as The Dark Knight, which is one of the best movies of the 2000s, with Heath Ledger playing the Joker. You've got Heath Ledger. He's a wonderful actor from Australia. He plays the Joker. He's great. He's real good in that movie, I tell you. The thing about that movie, though, is that they were going to plan on having Heath Ledger back as the Joker in the next movie, which didn't happen, unfortunately, on account of Heath Ledger not staying alive long enough to be in the next movie. Rest his soul. May he rest in paradise. Heath Ledger, the Joker. I know how he got those scars. Nobody knows how he got those scars. I gotta tell you. So when The Dark Knight Rises came out and you've got Bane, right? You got this Bane guy. I think the ringleader was really supposed to be the Joker, and the Joker was gonna use Bane as one of his minions, essentially, or at least use Bane because Bane is basically a match for Batman in every respect. Intelligence, physicality. He might even outmatch Batman on account of the fact that he broke Batman's back. But Bane, they both have the same teacher. They're both kung fu masters. They're the dark arts, as it were, in Star Wars Episode 9. Yeah, it would have been good. But the problem is, Christopher Nolan, hey Will, what's up? Christopher Nolan started with the Batman movies, which was a great idea, because Batman doesn't have any superpowers. He's not a superpowered character. He's just a smart guy who's more strong-willed than anything. He's the most dangerous person on Earth, according to Superman. And that's why it would have been interesting to see Batman versus Superman. Superman is basically powered. He is basically a Type 1 civilization. I was thinking about this last night, because you think about these things when you're a nerd. You go, wait a minute, if there's a Type 0 civilization, there's different types, levels of civilizations. A Type 1 civilization has the power has the ability to manipulate all of the power of a planet. So all of the planet Earth, all of the power on Earth, if we could harness all of that power, we would be a Type 1 civilization. Unfortunately, we are not a Type 1 civilization. We are a Type 0 civilization. We're like a Type 0.2 civilization because we have nuclear power. I've got this focus issue every day, which is fun. Here, let me just tell my camera that my face is right here. My face is here, okay, camera? My eyes are up here. Hey, Jimmy James Cordova, welcome. Congratulations. We're talking today about the SNYDERVERSE, the DCEU. And I was just getting everybody up to speed. Not that I have to, because you've seen all these movies. That's why it's fun to talk about them. Batman. He's a realistic character. He's real. He's a real guy. He's firmly based in the physics, generally speaking, of reality. And I was just saying how Superman is got like all of the power. He can harness the power of a planet. If you could turn the planet backwards, and I don't think he has enough power to harness the power of a sun, because basically that's the type of civilizations. A type 1 civilization can harness all the energy of a planet. A type 2 civilization can harness all the energy of a star or a solar system. And a type 3 civilization can harness all of the energy in a galaxy, that's a big that's lots of power. That's like basically a type 3 civilization. Or Star Wars is kind of a type 2 civilization because they can harness all the power of a star in that. Maybe it's a type 3 because they do have a lot of power. But Superman himself can harness all the planetary power from Earth. This dude, he's strong. He could turn the planet backwards. He could save Lois Lane. The reason I bring all this up is because of the disparity between the human character of Batman and the Kryptonian character, the alien character of Superman. They're very disparate. They're far apart. Hey, Kelsey. Thanks for joining us. What's up, Tatiana? Howdy. How are you? We're talking DCEU in the Snyderverse, and I was getting pretty esoteric with some of my thoughts about the differences between Batman and Superman, because it's building up to something, I promise. Batman is a person, he's a human, he's got lots of wealth and power and all the resources, so it's cool to watch him through his motivation and his determination, and he's driven at cleaning up the crime in Gotham because the crime is what killed his parents. He wants to get back at them. But Superman, he's an alien. He grew up here. He grew up in Kansas with good values. He's a nice guy. He does truth, justice in the American way. So you're starting to see there's a difference here. There's a guy who's like scorned and angry at the Earth, and he's just a human guy. And he's like, look, I've got all the money and power, but I could not save my parents. Superman's like, same thing, kind of the similar deal. Martha. Superman's all, I've got all the power of the planet. How do I save everyone on this planet? I think the problem, generally speaking, yeah, Michael Keaton is a great Batman. Thank you, Jimmy James. I totally agree. I was very skeptical. This will be an aside. I was very skeptical when Michael Keaton was Batman because I was very young. I was a kid. I was like, isn't that Beetlejuice? Hey, that's Beetlejuice. How he going to play Batman? But he beat out Bill Murray for the role of Batman. And that's true. Bill Murray was going to play Batman, which would have been a whole other Batman. That would have been more like the 1960s Batman with Adam West. Adam West and Robin, we're going to have to find the other Ghostbusters. I don't know how they would do that. But Adam West was also Adam West will always be my Batman. You never really see people saying that, but they should. You know why? Because it's the smart thing to do. What was the guy's name who played the Joker in the old series, in the 60s series? Kevin. So I was talking about the difference between Superman and Batman. There's a major difference here. One guy is dark, Batman. He'll do what it takes to win. He'll do what it takes to solve the mystery, to kill the bad... Well, he doesn't kill. To get the bad guy, put them back in, the kangaroo court that is Arkham Asylum. Superman is the one... Hey, I am Renee Lacey 9. Because I gotta say, when they had the success of Batman, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises, when they had that success with Christopher Nolan's movies, the DCEU, yeah, Cesar Romero, thank you. Cesar Romero will always be my Joker. When they had the original movies, with Christopher Nolan. The Warner Brothers was all like, "Hey, why don't we do this? But we do this with Superman. Why don't we take this whole dark idea of taking a dark character and apply that to a character who is fundamentally good and fundamentally does the right thing and is a light character?" And the thing about the DC universe is that the characters that are dark are only dark because there are characters that are light to contrast with them. And it makes me go, how did a studio of this size miss the mark? I always think it's funny when you have a character that is 80 years old or something. Superman was invented during World War II. Superman. Long time ago. The Ubermensch. That's what he comes from. Superman it's like there is a reason he stuck around for so long, and there's a reason why Batman stuck around so long. When Christopher Nolan took the source material for Batman and was like, "Hey, this is this is what has endured for these 70 to 80 years with this character, so I'm going to refashion these fundamental aspects of these characters, not even refashion them, feature these fundamental traits of this character in the Dark Knight trilogy, but also put my own spin on the story. But I'm going to feature the character fundamentally for who he is." When Zack Snyder was given the reins to bring Superman into the cinematic universe, or at least start a cinematic universe, starting with the Man of Steel, the dude missed the point. He missed the point, and at the level at which he is with Warner Brothers and the DC Comics, and billions of dollars are involved, how does this guy miss the point? How does he just completely drop the ball and go, you know what would be cool? Lots of punching. If we have Superman, and maybe his suit is dark, and he's like a dark Superman, he's a dark character. Now, I know there are many storylines in the Superman history of the comic book that take Superman dark. There's really one, there's really a cool one, Red Son of Krypton, which is pretty cool. You know how Superman accidentally lands in Kansas? So basically, in the comic book, the Earth turns. So what if Superman had left Krypton moments before or after he was sent away by Jor-El, his father, to go live safely on Earth and be raised by humans? What if it was just like moments difference? That moment's difference could have been like a whole half turn of the Earth, and Superman could have landed in Russia, which is a pretty cool storyline. So what if Superman, instead of landing in Kansas and upholding truth, justice, in the American way, landed in Soviet Russia and was raised by Soviets and became like the Red Son of Krypton, which is a cool comic book arc. But it's just a comic book offshoot. It's a reimagining. It's a story of like saying, what if we took this light character and turned him dark, or he had different values, had communist values, and he was basically a puppet for the Russian government or the Soviet government. That's different, because what did they do? They always come back to Superman again. They always come back to him fundamentally being good. They bring him back to his original arc of why we love Superman. In the 90s, they had like the silly, crazy red and blue Supermans that split up. They had the Superman Dies arc. They've had so many different. They had all the different Supermans come back, like the Man of Steel and the 4 different Supermans that came back after Superman died. He was killed by Doomsday. But what do? They always return to the original character of Superman. They might give Superman a new power. Same guy. They don't do this with the darker version of Superman in the Man of Steel SNYDERVERSE. He just completely drops the ball and doesn't get the character at all. He just says, well, Batman was dark, why don't we make Superman dark now? It can't work. That's like painting a rainbow black. I like rainbows, but I also like the color black. How do we make a rainbow but just made of black? It's counterintuitive is what I'm saying. I'm saying it doesn't make much sense. The problem, I think, with Snyder is that he bases a lot of his movies off of just random images that he gets art departments to paint concept images. So like someone's just randomly inspired to show Superman like punching something, and then Zack Snyder says, "I have an idea. Why don't we have lots of punching?" I don't know. I'm just rambling. The Nolans were actually writers of Man of Steel. Were they writers on Man of Steel? I thought that Christopher Nolan just produced it, and then someone else wrote it. The Dark Knight Returns. Yeah, The Dark Knight Returns was kind of a ball drop. I like how Christopher and Jonathan Nolan are really good at making airtight screenplays. They probably keep each other in check because The Dark Knight, it's got a great screenplay. I mean, there are a couple things in there where you're just like, okay, well, I'm going to suspend my disbelief. I don't believe you can take a fragment of a bullet that you found in a brick, reconstruct the bullet, and then reconstruct the fingerprint that's on the bullet. Dumb. That was silly. Not a fan of the Superman movies, and the Batman versus Superman made me angry when I watched it. Only made it halfway. Hated it. Hated. Oh my God, Tatiana, I'm right there with you. I was watching that movie, and I was like, wow, when is this movie going to get good? And then 3 hours later, there was punching, and there was lots of punching. There was lots more punching, and then Doomsday showed up. I liked the idea that they took General Zod's body and tried to reanimate it, and then turned into Doomsday. I thought that was pretty cool, but it's also kind of stupid. But there's certain things like that where personally, I just find it forgivable because it makes sense in that universe that they go, okay, well, we have another Kryptonian here. Why don't we try to reanimate this Kryptonian? There's lots of reanimation in these movies because in the Justice League, they brought back Superman. They reanimated that guy. And while you're at it, you should watch a movie called Dead Heat, starring Joe Piscopo and Treat Williams from the 80s. It's bad. That's a deep cut. Will probably saw that movie. Dead Heat. Hey, Alesis Doppler. Alesis, that's like a computer motherboard, and Doppler is an effect. That's like the compressions and rarefactions of air molecules when they get closer together and further apart when you're moving in relation to another object. I think. I don't know. That's just off the top of my head. Superman should not be a dark character. He needs to be a light character. He needs to be a friendly guy. He needs to always show what the right thing is to do. And that's why it's compelling when Batman's like, look, Superman, I get it. You're a Boy Scout. You want to do the right thing. I want to fix the problem, and I'm going to do what it takes to fix the problem. Sorry. I'll try not to kill anybody. But because Batman's a little bit more, he's a little bit less dogmatic about things. Batman is a little more pragmatic. He figures out shit, and he says, well, I'm also a detective. That's why I'm excited to see this new Batman by Mark Reeves, which is going to be Robert Pattinson is going to play him. And really a film noir about the detective work that Batman does, because the Batfleck version of Batman was like this giant bear dude wearing a giant costume, punching and doing lots of punching. Because Zack Snyder, if you've noticed, the imagery in his films are like these sort of hyper masculine dudes with giant muscles punching, and then there's like ultra feminine women with like very thin bodies punching. That's Zack Snyder's aesthetic. I mean, I suppose it's appealing on some level. However, there's just lots of punching. Let's see, Tatiana. Will says, Jonathan may have been credited, but Christopher Nolan produced. Yeah, Jonathan is a good writer. He's good. I still haven't caught up on the Westworld series yet, because I don't know when it's going to get good. I watched the first season, and it took 6 episodes for me to like it. I was like, hey, I'm watching this show, and my friend Oliver was like, don't you love the show? Isn't it great? and I would watch another episode, and I'm like, okay, when's it gonna get good? And then he's like, wasn't that episode amazing? I was like, I think I fell asleep 7 times. Because everybody just dies and then wakes up the next day, and then there's people sitting around naked, and then there's people like just sitting around naked, and then they go to sleep, and then they wake up, and then there's the Old West, and then Radiohead is playing on the player piano, and Soundgarden is playing on the player piano, and you're just like, okay, what the hell is happening here? There's a map, there's a maze. If you take someone's scalp off, there's a maze inside their head. I wasn't very impressed, guys, to be honest. However, I did start liking it halfway through the first season. Does it get good? Does Westworld get good? Is it worth it? Is it Game of Thrones level? Like, I gotta watch the next episode. I gotta see what happens here. I really enjoyed this episode. It felt like a movie. Or is it just like more people kind of talking at each other and trying to look at a maze and then staring into the middle distance, looking at a maze? They're like, look, they go like this. It's a labyrinth. That's every episode. Stop me if I'm wrong. But is not every episode of Westworld this? Hours of that. They're like wasting film. Good, the caffeine's kicking in. Am I right, guys? Am I right or am I wrong? Is this is the whole show. The whole show to me. It was like 7 episodes of that. What is appealing? I'm mad. I'm angry at Westworld. Jonathan Nolan. I got it. I liked that first season. I liked the end of the first season. I thought it was pretty cool. I was like, oh, what we were watching wasn't actually what we thought we were watching. And these characters aren't exactly who we thought they were. Cool. Did we need, I don't know how many episodes it was, 10, 12? Did we need that many episodes? You could have done that in 5. But no, they spent 5 episodes staring at a freaking, it's like this, and it's like that. They go like this. It looks like this. Guys, remember this? This is what it looks like. It's like a map. There's a maze. I'm a robot. And there's a maze. And I'm a robot. Good God. I saw a lot of casting calls for that to be background on those shows, and they were like, must be okay with nudity. So maybe one day you guys will see me in the background of an episode of Westworld. Naked. I'll be the guy with the neck beard. It gets a little overwhelming. Will, how does it get overwhelming? I was extremely underwhelmed. I liked it. I felt like they were like, pay attention. Pay close attention. Every episode of Westworld. Pay close attention to what's going on. Just pay close attention. And I'm like, okay, they're staring at a map for 15 minutes. But they're just staring at it. I don't like it. One time I saw James Marsden at the Blue Dog Cafe in Sherman Oaks. That's it. That's my story. Blue Dog Cafe is good. They got good burgers, but I don't eat burgers, so they have good veggie burgers. I'm a vegetarian. I actually know someone who they was in the military and they don't eat meat, and they're an animal doctor. They're a veteran, vegetarian, veterinarian. Get it? Tatiana says she lost interest in the complexity of Westworld. And I get it. It seems complex. I mean, look at this map. This map is... There are all different ways you can go. All right, with the maze. Guys, I'm going to call up Jonathan Nolan and say, listen, we need a little bit more, like, things. Everybody's just staring at each other and having speeches. I don't know. Maybe we can, do you think it's going to get canceled? Do you think we're ever going to see the end of Westworld, or is it just going to be like a silly, ongoing, like, it's going to be one of those shows where you're like, why do I keep watching this? This is going to be the episode for Monday, maybe. Series that we watch and that we put ourselves through, and we're like, why do I keep going back to see another Fast and Furious movie? Why do I keep watching Star Wars? I keep watching because the Mandalorian is good. The Mandalorian renewed my interest in Star Wars after my friend just texted me about an hour ago and was like, hey, because I told him the other day that I was watching Star Wars Episode 9 again, because he's been really encouraging me. And he's like, listen, just see it again. Just check it out again. Go watch Episode 9 again. I actually went to see it in the theater again, only because my friend wanted to see it, and they were like, you need to explain what's happening to me. And I was like, I don't want to see it again. And they were like, well, I need to see it. I'll buy your ticket and I'll get you popcorn. I was like, all right, fine, but I'm not going to like it. I'm going for the popcorn only. And then the second time I saw it, because there was free popcorn involved, I think I liked it a little bit more. I hated it less, I'll say. But then last night, the other night when I was watching it, I told my friend, I said, hey, look, I was watching Star Wars. He said, how was Star Wars Episode 9? I saw that you were watching it again. You told me about it. How did you like it this time? And I was like, well, this time around, I got to say, I hate that movie. It's bad. I don't like it. It's still terrible. I said I didn't hate it the second time I saw it at the theater, but I think I'm back to hating it again. It's not a good one. Not a fan. JJ. I know you love Star Wars, period, JJ, and I appreciate that passion and enthusiasm. I love Star Wars too. I always will love Star Wars. I am a Star Wars fan. However, I can still feel that, like, I can pick and choose my Star Warses from now on. I'm going to go, I will watch The Empire Strikes Back whenever I feel like it. I will watch maybe Rogue One every now and then because I was like, oh, that was fun. And then I'll watch the original one, and then I'll watch Return of the Jedi, and then maybe I'll start over again. But Episode 9, I gotta say, I can't watch it as many times as the other ones. There's something about it. But getting back to the Snyderverse, you've got dark Superman in the Snyderverse, which I think was a misstep. You can't darken Superman. There's actually a pretty cool video on YouTube where you could watch where they recolor graded Superman's suit, because you know how it's like a kind of a dark maroon and deep blue in the Snyderverse, in the Man of Steel that came out about 8 years ago. That suit, they recolor graded it so it was more along the color of Christopher Reeve's Superman suit from the Superman the movie, 1978. That movie, they matched the color of Superman suits, the Henry Cavill suit, with that, Henry Cavill. So it's pretty cool to see that and go, oh, well, that looks like Superman now. When I was sitting there watching Man of Steel, and there was lots of punching, lots of aliens from another planet super punching each other, lots of punches. Here's my problems with that movie. Lots of problems. Superman has been a character that I've always loved because he's figured out stuff. He's a good guy. He will always do the good thing. He will always do the right thing. And even when it seems like he's outsmarted, he uses his powers to overcome whatever obstacle in a creative way. So Lex Luthor might be the smartest man on Earth and Superman's arch nemesis. And he'll seem to come out with like Kobayashi Maru type of obstacles for Superman. He'll throw things at For instance, in Superman, the movie, he sends 2 nuclear warheads in opposite directions, and he's like, listen, Superman, even with all of your mighty speed, you cannot stop both of these missiles. But Superman uses his powers to stop both missiles. So there's a little bit of a plot hole there, because Superman stops one missile, shoots it out into space, and then turns the Earth backwards to stop the other missile and save Lois Lane. Or does he stop the other missile? No, I think it still goes off, but he gets to Lois Lane in time to save her. But then there are 2 Supermans in the world at that moment, if you think about it. Think about it. If Superman went back in time to stop one but not the other, there are 2 Supermans existing in that moment. But when you're watching the Snyder one from 2012 or whatever it is, the Man of Steel, there's all this punching going on. And this Superman, while he's punching Zod and they're destroying all the buildings of Metropolis, everything is crumbling around you and people are dying. There's like masses of people dying. I was sitting in the theater looking at the screen, watching the carnage, going, okay, all right, now Superman's going to like do a thing that's going to save everybody, and it's going to be really spectacular and really cool. All right, this seems like completely insurmountable. It seems like something that is nearly impossible. I can't wait to see what Superman's creative solution is going to be to save Metropolis. And then there was more punching, and then there was a lot more punching, and a lot more buildings got destroyed, and then there was a world engine destroying the part of and nothing happened. Just more people died. Zack Snyder forgot that Superman doesn't let people just die like that. It's really rough. That was that part of the movie. Yes, Superman ripping the S on his chest and throwing it. That was from Superman 2, Jimmy James Cordova. We got to remember that Superman 2 was taken away from Richard Donner, and Richard Donner was replaced by Richard Linklater. And Richard Linklater decided to just arbitrarily give Superman powers that Superman really didn't have, just because he wanted to sort of up the ante. So when Richard Linklater reshot half of Superman 2, he included silly things where Superman rips his S off and throws it at Zod or whoever, and or the Zod and the aliens lift things up with their fingers, and that was all added later. That was all added by Richard Linklater, and then later taken away by Richard Donner when Richard Donner did the Richard Donner cut. So he cut all that stuff out and kept it to the fundamentals of Superman's powers, which is pretty cool. Yes, Will remembers Dead Heat vaguely. Another massive problem I had with Man of Steel, which made no sense, and I laughed aloud in the theater. I laughed all over my popcorn. I was picking the popcorn out of my beard afterward because it was so hilarious. When I was watching Man of Steel and Superman's doing all the punching, because if you remember in that movie, Superman has to become like, he has to learn to control his powers. So sometimes he could see through walls. He's using his X-ray vision, but then he's got to like reel it in and figure it out. Certain things about the atmosphere on Earth he had to acclimate himself to, and he had to learn how to do all of these things throughout his life. And he developed his skills because he's on a different planet with a different sun, and that's what powers him. Now here comes Zod from outer space. They call him Zod from outer space, played by Michael Shannon. And Zod comes down to the Earth. And now that second to third act of the movie where there's lots of punching, where Zod is punching Superman, they're just punching and punching and punching and punching for like an hour. In that part, Superman is kind of losing, right? And I think it's pretty hilarious because he's losing the fight. And there's one moment when Zod, like his helmet comes off and he gets disoriented and he's seeing an X-ray vision and he's completely disoriented, right? And you'd think, if you ever read The Art of War by Sun Tzu, Sun Tzu says, basically, in a boxing match, if your opponent's wobbly, hit him. If your opponent reveals a weakness, take advantage of the weakness if you want to win. And if Superman wants to save the planet Earth from Zod, and Zod is completely disoriented, Superman should punch him. He should do some more punching. This is the moment where I recommend Superman do more punching. However, in that movie, and you can watch it, and I've watched it several times since, and I laugh every time because it's the dumbest thing ever. Superman has the drop on Zod. Zod's disoriented. They're standing in the street. There's carnage around them. And Superman gives Zod a helpful tip. He's like, oh yeah, Zod, right now, you're experiencing disorientation. What you need to do is focus. You need to breathe deeply. It's the atmosphere. It's giving you problems. Superman freaking tells Zod what to do so that they can keep punching. It's the dumbest thing ever. It's like you're fighting your opponent and like they're wobbling. You're like, hey, wait, I'm just gonna hang out here for a second, wait for you to get your legs back. Here's some water, maybe a little bit of ice on your neck. I'll just be right here ready for you to punch me in the face again. So dumb. I don't know how that, like if I were in the writer's room, I'd say, hey, Zach, so you mean to tell me that Superman has an advantage over, like a distinct advantage right now, where he could grab Zod and maybe restrain him while Zod is completely disoriented and win the match? But you're actually saying, no, Superman at this moment gives Zod advice and tells him, look, you need to focus, Zod. Guys, are you feeling me on this? Because I really don't like that scene. I think it's the dumbest thing that, like, it just jumps out at me. Why would you do that? Why would anyone do that? It's like in a war. You're fighting a war, and you go, hey, for instance, the first Gulf War. We won it really ingeniously, actually, because we invaded Saudi Arabia, because there was like a border of Saudi Arabia and Iraq, that first Iraq War, and we invaded Iraq and approached the Iraqi army that was lined up thinking we were going to come in through Kuwait. They were lined up on the border of Kuwait, facing Kuwait, and we went in to Saudi Arabia and then invaded Iraq and then sandwiched them. We came in from behind. It came from behind, like in Star Wars. And then we sandwiched them, and they immediately surrendered because they were like, oh, we're surrounded. So if we, in that war, which was only 93 days long, it was ended. If we in that war were like, by the way, Iraq, we're invading you. Just be prepared that we might come up behind you. This is our plan. You guys aren't ready for this, so just to let you know, we're invading your country and sneaking up behind you. Okay. That's basically what Superman did in that fight. Dumbest way to lose a fight. And then more punching. Hey, Alley Cat Ray. We're just getting geeky right here. I'm getting mad at Zack Snyder's dumb decisions in in The Man of Steel, and yes, Jimmy James Cordova. See, the thing is, I see what you're saying. Jimmy James says that's the moment when Zod was disoriented, and I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Literally, reference to pop culture is Mike Tyson's Punch-Out, the NES game from the 80s, when the character is like this. That's when you press the start key and you do the super punch. That's what Superman should have done. He should have pressed the start key. He should have pressed the start key and then super punched. He should have super punched Zod in that moment when he was dazed. It's just so stupid. Like, I'm so angry about it. I will watch that scene again and just get mad at it. He just stands there, looks at a guy like this that is basically destroying the earth, and this is the moment he could have snapped his neck. Yes, Jimmy James. However, he snaps his neck later because of no reason. There's no reason for Superman to ever murder somebody. But there were so many opportunities for Superman to cleverly solve, or at least use his powers in a creative way to win, but Zack Snyder does not have the depth, sadly. He has much more depth than, say, Michael Bay, but doesn't have the depth to understand that character is destiny. Superman doesn't snap necks. The whole goal of the movies was to be a viable excuse for Superman being capable of being morally compromised such that they can pull off injustice. The Return of the Dark Knight, evil Superman. I feel you on that. However, I think it was a great opportunity to reintroduce Superman into the universe. And they could have done it fundamentally. What's up, CL Hodge 11? I think fundamentally they could have reintroduced the character and established him as a morally sound individual, and then later morally compromised him. But they wanted to rush things. They wanted to bring everything together. If you remember, Batman vs. Superman was originally going to be Man of Steel 2, and then months later they were like, Zack Snyder's cooking something up. I think Batman might show up in this movie. And then months after that, this is the timeline. I remember this because a friend of mine actually had to leave LA and go work on Batman vs. Superman in Detroit in like a post house. So he worked on it for about 6 months. He went over to Detroit. He was working on Batman vs. Superman. He kept like saying like wink wink nudge nudge, I'm working on a movie, but let's just say it's got an alien and a billionaire in it. Like he had to sign an NDA. I won't say which my friends it is because he had to sign an NDA, but he was basically like, I can't say what movie I'm working on, but but one guy can stop bullets. He kept winking. And the other guy can find a fingerprint on a bullet fragment that's stuck in a brick. Just kidding. When they did that, they later added Batman, and then it became Batman versus Superman, and then they later added Wonder Woman, and then it became like Batman versus Superman featuring Wonder Woman and Lex Luthor and Doomsday, and also with a post-credit of this and that and the other thing, and it just got silly and it's bad. And yes, Tatiana, I feel you on that. When you say you watched Batman versus Superman and you did not like it, you just got angry, I got super angry. I thought the fighting was pretty cool. I thought there was some cool fighting, like when Batman puts the kryptonite dust in Superman's face, and he's like, "Whoa, I'm dazed. Batman, tell me what to do." That's not what happened, but Batman's like punching him with the hydraulic punch, and then like Superman's kind of coming out of it, and then doesn't budge. I thought that was a really cool example of the difference in their powers. However, the similarity in their moms' names is kind of stupid. Martha. I didn't hate it though. People hate Martha Gate. They don't like the fact that Superman and Batman came together over the fact that their mom has the same name. Save Martha. Silly, goofy, silly. But here's a thing that really bugs me about Batman versus Superman. Again, Zack Snyder just not getting it. Not getting how stories and characters work, I guess. Because, yeah, Tatiana, I wanted to punch the movie screen. I actually saw the movie 2 times in like 3 days, and that's about 6 hours of that. It's a lot of just boring, and then there's like a cool fight for 40 minutes. But the 40-minute fight, visually cool, over the top, spectacular by definition, but completely stupid and useless, and for no reason. You've got Batman fighting Superman literally over a misunderstanding. And this is how I describe this movie every time it gets to the point where Batman and Superman have the final showdown. They confront each other ultimately, and Batman is standing there. He has set up all of these booby traps, these incredible, hyper-realistic booby traps, because Batman is the greatest detective on Earth. He's the most dangerous human. He is trying to protect the Earth, because even if there's a 1% chance, that's 100%. Batman's not good at math. So he he sets up all of these booby traps for Superman, and Superman shows up and he's like, hey, Bat Bro, I know that we're having a fight right now. I know that we're having a disagreement throughout this movie, and we kind of know who each other is. But I got something to tell you. And Batman is like, we're going to fight. I set these booby traps up. I am going to fight you now. And it's like, yeah, I get it. You're angry at me, Batman, right now. I'm Superman, but I just need to tell you one thing. And if I tell you this one thing, we can actually join forces and stop Lex Luthor right now. But Batman's like, but I set up all these booby traps. We need to fight now. But the booby traps. I got Soundwave machines over here. I got kryptonite. I got what else I got? I got this whole, you see the suit I'm wearing? This is not cheap. We need to fight. But Superman's like, it's just a misunderstanding. There's actually no reason why we should have any conflict right now, because there's been no setup for that for this whole movie. There's no reason why we should have interpersonal conflict. Superman's like, you know, the writers of this movie could have come up with a better reason for us to be completely compelled to fight each other. However, they have written us into a scene where we just are having a misunderstanding. And if only we spoke for 2 minutes, we could get past that. But Batman's like, but booby traps. I want to punch you. We need punching. Dumb. I get angry at these kinds of things, ladies and gentlemen. I get angry when there's no reason for the action, for the spectacle. It's fun, and people know this better than others. It is way more fun. The spectacle is way more fun when there are stakes. When in The Dark Knight, Christopher Nolan, when Batman, first of all, one of the sickest things I've ever seen in a movie, in a Batman movie, is when Batman's tumbler, the Batmobile, has an emergency exit motorcycle. Still the coolest freaking thing I've ever seen. The 2 front wheels turn into a motorcycle, and he's ejected from the self-destructing Batmobile. First of all, mind blown. Pretty cool. Makes sense. Gadgets. We love the gadgets, Batman. Keep them coming. Now, Batman's on his motorcycle, which makes turns by flipping the front wheel. I can't say enough good things about that movie. Batman doesn't use guns, but he's got guns on all of his vehicles. That doesn't make any sense. That's another problem I had with Batman versus Superman. So now you've got Batman in The Dark Knight on his motorcycle, approaching, setting up a booby trap, having an 18-wheeler flip end over end in an actual practical stunt that they performed. That was rad. And then Joker gets out. He's a little beat up, but he's walking toward Batman, and Batman is coming toward him on the motorcycle, and they're coming at each other. And this is true conflict. The Joker loves chaos, and he wants nothing more than for Batman to compromise his morals and actually kill him. The Joker would be super happy in this moment if Batman physically tried to murder him. This is like all of what the Joker wants. He craves chaos. Batman is enraged at the Joker. So there's an actual conflict happening in this moment as Batman is racing toward him. And you see the Joker's like, come on, do it. He wants it. He wants Batman to completely compromise himself. And it's freaking great. There's not so much punching. And at the last second, what does Batman do? He's like, I can't compromise my fundamental ethics. And he wipes the bike out and does not kill the Joker. That's true conflict. Because it's based on character. And it's just a moment that's filled with tension. You don't get that in Batman versus Superman. You get, hey, that's a nice mechanized suit, Batman. It'd be a waste to punch it, but I'm gonna have to punch it because we got to do punching now. Now is punching time. Yeah, The Dark Knight is fantastic. It's a fantastic movie. Another major problem with Batman versus Superman, um, where like that movie is such a Frankenstein movie. I think Doomsday himself, being the reanimated Zod in Batman versus Superman, is a representation of how that movie is just Frankensteined together. They just sewed so many different characters into that, and you know, I don't remember hating it. There's certain things about it that I like, but I gotta say I liked Wonder Woman the best. Wonder Woman was fun. A lot of people don't like Wonder Woman, but I liked Wonder Woman. I thought it was a good movie. I'm looking forward to Wonder Woman 1984. That looks like fun. Guys, if you're just joining me, we're in the back end of the show. Basically, every day at noon, Monday through Friday, we do Aristotle Full Throttle. We talk about movies, and we watch me get worked up over maps and silly movies that aren't based on true conflict or character. And you guys are great. Listen, Confession, Affleck as Batman, no, no, no. So that movie had no chance with me. Yeah. I gotta say, there's something about the Batfleck that I didn't mind. I thought it was a good choice. Most people hated it. The internet had a meltdown when they heard Ben Affleck was gonna play Batman, but it was pretty cool. I thought it was pretty cool visually, because it was the most Frank Miller comic book accurate version of Batman, in his like kind of perched up on things and jumping through the air and having like lightning flash and you see a silhouette. It was just very visually cool. But again, Batman just going berserker on everybody, just beating the crap out of them. Everyone, part of me liked that decision in Batman versus Superman, where Batman goes around like just straight up. I don't think when Batman punched that dude and his head went into the floorboards, I don't think he survived. I think Batman might have murdered that guy. You know, it's always funny when you watch an old series or an old TV show, especially like the A-Team. I remember this. It was always very funny. Every time they would show a crazy stunt where a car would explode and tumble and fall, they always made it a point to have a shot of the people who were in the car crawling out okay. Because it was made for TV, and they were like, this is not just straight up murder. This is not crazy violence. But every A-Team vehicle that exploded and did, like, those guys loved to blow up cars. That was like they were domestic terrorists, the A-Team. Those guys should really be put behind bars. They were like fugitives from the law, and somehow would always do a job for like $20,000. They would blow up freaking, I don't know, it was silly. It seemed, I mean, like, what is that, $5,000 each? These guys aren't really making that much bank to continue, like, nearly murdering people and being vigilantes. Yeah. Yeah, the guys would jump out right at the last second. You're right. It's so hilarious. What's up, Popcorn Passport? Yes. Hated the idea of Batfleck, but I love him on film. Yeah, it was a kind of a universal situation. Is like a lot of people were, this Batfleck idea. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Yeah, that's a bad idea, but it turned out pretty good. I thought he was I thought he was a good Batfleck. I have to say, when I watched, now we're going to get to the Justice League, I liked Wonder Woman. I feel like Wonder Woman is good. I thought that was a good representation of the character. Certain things about in these last 6 minutes, I want to talk about Justice League, which I think is the official end of the Snyderverse. And sadly, he had to leave that project because of a family tragedy. But halfway through filming, they had to take over. They had to hand the reins over to none other than Joss Whedon, who Joss Whedon, of course, directed the first 2 Avengers movies and is a great ensemble director and writer. So I think that was a good choice to save the movie. But the movie overall, I think it's just barely watchable. I love the scene, though, when they reanimate Superman. I liked that. I thought it was cool. I'd like the idea that Superman comes back to life and just doesn't have a memory of anything that's going on. He's just like, wait, what's happening? Who am I? Who are these people? They seem like threats. Let me fight them. Let me start punching. I thought that was actually pretty cool that they had to get ready to. But I mean, at the same time, it's a bit contrived where they're all like, oh, let's bring Superman back to life, but let's be ready to murder him also. All of us, all of the super-powered metahumans, let's all get together and start fighting if we need to. And of course they did, but I thought the greatest moment in all of the Batman versus Superman or the Snyderverse, my favorite moment, and maybe, you know, there's several moments that I really like in these movies. This moment, however, might take the cake, which is that moment when Superman is fighting Cyborg, Aquaman, Wonder Woman. They're all like trying to restrain him, and the Flash is trying to run around, and the Flash is running at near the speed of light, and Superman just looks out of the corner of his eye and, and follows him around. I thought that was a great example of how to feature Superman's powers. And when I was in the theater and that happened, the crowd was a bit lukewarm throughout the whole movie. And in that moment, everybody went, oh snap. It's on. It's going to happen right now. Superman going to catch him. And then, of course, they fought. Everybody fought. They all punched. What you want in a Superman movie is lots of punching. I think that's what Zack Snyder requires mostly. They say, hey, Zack Snyder, we need you to make a Superman movie. And he's like, okay, my first demand needs to be punching. There needs to be 2 hours of punching at least. More punching than talking. But so much could get solved. If we learned anything from watching Batman versus Superman, that so much can get solved just through talking. There was a misunderstanding. Oh, they're dropping Ezra. Oh, yeah. Oh, so Ezra is not coming back. Ezra is a domestic abuser? That's horrible. Well, he ought to not come back. He ought to not be rewarded for that type of behavior. Well, guys, we're headed toward the end. We do this every day. So remember, AristotleFullThrottle.com if you want to subscribe. If you want to like this video on AristotleFullThrottle.com. If you want to watch it from the beginning, it'll be playing for the next 24 hours on Instagram and will be available indefinitely. That's almost like forever on YouTube. You could watch it on YouTube. It'll be there. Did we cover all the bases? Did we get to all of the Snyderverse movies? Look, I liked Watchmen. I thought Snyder's Watchmen was pretty enjoyable. I liked the visuals. I kind of enjoyed the little slight adaptation of the end where they had to... I kind of did, but I kind of didn't. I did enjoy the TV series, The Watchmen, which is an excellent companion piece to the 1980s graphic novel, The Watchmen. So I highly recommend that. I think it's probably the best show ever. It might be the best season of television ever because it is so well told. And I think Damon Lindelof, the writer of that series, the creator of the Watchmen series, which is a sequel, I think he learned his lesson from the frustration that people felt from the TV show Lost and the fact that he's not a very good screenwriter for film, with like movies like Prometheus where they're like, why did Damon Lindelof introduce all of these stupid ideas and not really pay them off? That's dumb. Damon Linda not pay off. But when he did the Watchmen TV series, I think he hunkered down and was like, listen, I got to really redeem myself here and show how much of a good writer I actually am. And the Watchmen TV series is excellent. I highly recommend that. I enjoyed the heck out of it every moment of that show, pretty much. And it's 10 episodes, I believe. And probably the finest, it's HBO. So there are very few rules and that they have to follow. And the series is a very well long form story. And I recommend it. Thank you guys for joining me on Instagram. I'll probably wrap things up over on YouTube, but if you want to go over to YouTube, AristotleFullThrottle.com. If you want to support me on Patreon, patreon.com/AristotleFullThrottle. You can pledge $1, $2, $100 a month to keep the show going. That would help. That would be great. And, share my videos. Also, Monday, We'll be back Monday talking about some more movie stuff all of the time. Razzie kids, thank you for joining us. I'm going to go. Oh, yeah, giveaway. I'm having a giveaway, guys. Comment and support the channel, and I'll give you a PS4 to a lucky winner. See you later. Guys, YouTube, wrapping things up. Yes, that was a great twist on Dr. Manhattan, Popcorn Passport. I agree. I thought it was really interesting. I thought it was a cool way to revisit all of these characters and introduce all new characters that are just as compelling as the originals, and really get the whole point that these are real people in a real world situation, and there's only one superpowered person ever. And I like that dynamic. I like that weirdness of maybe there's one guy who's got godlike powers and nobody else does. And everyone else is trying to be superheroes. And the guy with godlike powers doesn't even want to be there. He's like, all right, you guys figure this out. I'm going to head to Mars and just chill. Because I'm everywhere at once and know everything, but also I don't care. But guys, yeah, thank you so much for joining me here. We had a lively discussion today, I think. I think Wonder Woman is the best movie in the DCEU. I think Batman vs. Superman might be the worst movie in the DCEU. And then you've got Justice League. I don't know. Is Justice League better than Batman vs. Superman? Maybe. Maybe not. I think Justice League had more of a cohesiveness and more of a fun factor, an enjoyable factor. They brought Superman back to his fundamental, just to wrap things up, to bring that story loop back, is that Superman was started out as a dark character, but when Joss Whedon got the reins, he was like, listen, guys, let's not screw up Superman. Let's have him come back and be like, Mom, that sounds like justice. I'm Superman. I'm a Boy Scout. That's Superman. That is fundamentally his character. And Joss Whedon brought it home, brought him back to that. I heard that Henry Cavill might do another Superman. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see them just sort of like bring it on home with the traditional great Superman. I think he's a pretty good pick for Superman to fight for truth, justice, and the UK way. But, I'd like to see that one more movie with at least the Superman that we've been familiar with in the last decade. Yep, you can check out the Suicide Squad 2, should be good. I hope so. I think it's called The Suicide Squad this time around, and they're slightly revamping it. And I think that's the approach that DC is going to make. And I forgot to mention Joker. Joker is kind of technically a part of the DCEU, sort of, but it's not really. It's kind of an offshoot. And I think The Suicide Squad is going to be its own version of things. It's going to just go like, I think they're going to do these one-off stories now in these self-encapsulated movies like the James Bond movies used to be. There used to be like a loose connective tissue between the James Bond movies, but they were all sort of unique stories featuring these characters, which I think is a great approach and the best way to move forward in the DCEU. Well, guys, I really have to pee, so I'm going to go. I've been Aristotle, Full Throttle, your bro in the know with the fro, and I'll see you Monday. We're going to talk about some more of this stuff, and it's going to be great. I appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. Stay smart. Protect your face. Cover your mouth and nose. And try to avoid any kind of human contact. In person, that is. Or at least stay 6 feet apart. Thank you guys so much. You're the best. I appreciate this. This is probably my 25th live show in the last month or so. And I really do appreciate it.